Well, welcome. Today we are going to be talking about the wonderful program of Substance Painter. I have a PowerPoint over here. Let me bring it up real quick. And present that. Cool. Well, I'm Jess. This is CU Game Development Club. We're talking about Substance Painter. So what is it? This is the website for it. It is a texturing software for three-dimensional models. And it's mostly used only for 3D models. If you're trying to do things like texture 2D planes or things like just create materials in general, there's something called Substance Designer that's a little bit different. It is used for different things like creating animated materials and stuff like that. And you can really use them together. That's where they really shine. But for now, we're just going to be talking about the 3D part of it, which is Substance Painter. A lot of things from Designer are in Painter, but really Painter is for painting the models and Designer is for designing what you're going to be painting on them. And from their website, all the tools you need to texture your 3D assets are in one application. Substance Painter has smart materials, smart masks, integrated backers, and a state-of-the-art real-time viewport, whatever that means. And the tool makes creating textures very quick while allowing them to be seamless and high quality with an emphasis on seamless, which is the main reason I like it. And next, we're going to be talking about what tools it includes. So if you ever used Photoshop, it is a lot like that. It's basically a bunch of layers on top of each other, and each layer can have different special gizmos inside of them, like smart masks and smart materials and stuff like that. And the main selling point of Substance Painter is if you have a 3D model and you UV unwrap it, I don't know how many people here have done that, but you create these seams on them, which show up in your model. And no one really likes seams. They're not very pretty. And this thing just lets you paint right over them like they don't exist, which is what I really like. They use generators. These things take information from baked maps that allow you to create things such as edgeware. That's really powerful and lets you create some really good looking things really fast. And there's documentation and tutorials, not as much as say like Blender or Unity, but there's a lot of documentation on this and it's very intuitive. And of course, this thing is a AAA program that's used in many video games, so it's massive, much more than can be talked about in an hour or even 20 or 30 minutes. So yeah, if you ever want to pick this up, there's a lot you can do with it. Speaking of who uses it, it's a industry standard. It's used most importantly with Fallout 76, and that alone should mean that it's the best thing ever. And, it's also used with things like Death Stranding, Assassin's Creed, Rocket League. That rhymed. That was unintentional. And it's basically used in, it'd be easier to say what AAA games don't use Substance Painter than do, I guess. I use it to texture custom models, but I don't use it that often. I think the last time I used it was over the summer on a summer project. It's on Steam. I think they raised its price from $100 to $150, but I think it's subject to the Steam sale. So you might be able to get it on discount if you really want it. And I think they have a new version for this year. And here's some examples. One is the CU Gamedev logo that I made many years ago, right when I bought this program. So that's pretty cool. And there's this nice little carnival overgrown scene on a bookshelf. That's pretty cool. These are all things I've made, by the way, just little examples of it. There's a portal cake, and then one in the future for a time travel portal map thing. That was pretty fun. And yeah, now we're gonna get on to the demonstration, which is the real fun part. So I'm just gonna exit out of the PowerPoint real quick. So we're gonna start out in Blender. And I guess I should give you an overview of what we're going to be doing real quick. We're about 10 minutes in, so we're going to spend about 20 minutes talking about showing the layers and the paint things in the Substance Painter, showing alphas and updating the normal map with those alphas. A quick update on how to tile materials so you can have looping textures, and then of course how to get textures from Substance Painter into Blender, which I think I talked about in that Blender tutorial I did before, but it's really good to know again. So here is Blender. We're going to do layers and paint stuff first, so that's really simple. So to do that, oh yeah, I just wanted to, this is what that pipe scene looks like. It's good to start out with some sort of reference material, which I found this really cool overgrown, what is that called, a Ferris wheel? Yeah, and just put it on some books on a bookshelf. And if you end up creating a large scale project, it might look something like this. It's pretty fun. But we're gonna go with a new project. I created some sample materials here. It's going to take just a little bit to open up. This thing is a pretty CPU intensive program. You're going to need a somewhat big computer to run it. So you have this cube with a little thing in the top of it. And so this is what Substance Painter is. It's a lot like other programs some of you might have used, like Blender. You got a list of different tools you can use on the side here. On the bottom, you have a browser for different materials, alphas, textures, stuff like that. You can just click and drag them if you want to, but I would recommend not using the default materials for everything, because then everyone will know where you got them from. You know, if everyone's using this and everyone uses the default materials, it's not going to look very unique, whatever you're making. But you can just click and drag. And it's as simple as that if you want it to be. Click and drag onto your object and you're done. This thing was pre-UV unwrapped, by the way. I don't know if everyone here knows what UV unwrapping is, but it's basically creating this this thing right here, which is the flattened image of all of these text, of all of these geometries. So you just flatten it down onto this. And this right here is the important stuff. So this is your layers. So you can create a fill layer, which allows you to fill things with one solid color, like that. Or you can create things like paint layers, so you can paint on your object. And there are many things you can do with this, like effects and masks and stuff, which we're going to talk about just a little bit, but not try to overwhelm you with how massive this application is. But when you're starting out with this, the very first thing, that's an interesting noise. Anyway, the very first thing you want to do when you open Substance Painter is go to Texture Set Settings, which if you don't see it, it's on this side panel here. You can actually drag it anywhere you want it to be. It's very modular that way. It's kind of fun to customize your workspace. But we're going to bake mesh maps. And what baking mesh maps does is it'll give you a normal map, a world space normal map, an ID map, all of these maps down here that usually you have to bake in like Blender or something like that. But this thing is pretty easy. You can bake it all in one place, and it'll give you all the maps that you need. Now, I set this up with an ID map that I wanted to talk about. If we have time, I'll talk about ID maps and how you can have basically two textures on one object. But we're just going to click bake default material maps, because I'm pretty sure if no one's used this before, the default's the best way to go. So let's bake some default material maps. And this is a small object, so that was really fast. And we have all of these maps now done for us. And you can actually cycle through them here if you click on what we're viewing here. Right now we're viewing the material, which is what the end product's going to look like. You can actually view each map individually. So here's what the world space normal looks like. It's actually really useful to look at these so you can tell what you can use them for. Like this is the ID map. As you can tell, you can use it to separate this little hole in the top of the box from the rest of the box. And the ambient occlusion can be used to, I don't know, texture the rim of this little nodule here, or the curvature could be used for the same purpose. And I think thickness, as you can see, has these outlines, so you could use it if you want to add edgeware to the box. So that's really good to look at those just to see what you can use them for. And now we're going to go back to the layers, get a little bit away from the texture set settings. It doesn't really want to dock there, does it? There it goes. So the layers, we're going to start out with adding a layer. So it's good to have a base color. We're just going to make it red. That sounds pretty cool. And then we're going to have a color we're going to paint on top of that. Let's make it blue. Now, right now you're only seeing the blue one, or I guess it's kind of purple because it's on top. But you can add a mask to it by just right-clicking on it. And masks, a white mask will let everything through, so it won't change anything. But a black mask will hide everything, so you're only going to see the red. So you see the black mask hides all the blue color, so you only see what's underneath it. And then to that mask, you can add different things. So whenever you, the workflow basically in Substance Painter is adding a ton of fill layers and then adding a black mask to those fill layers and then working from there. So once you add the black mask, you can do anything you want from there. You could add a paint, and usually instead of painting directly on your object, you would paint where you want the fill layer to show up, like that. Or more fun, you can add something called a generator. Now, what a generator does is it takes these maps that we baked just a second ago, and it uses them for many, many purposes. There are quite a few of them here we can use. Again, sticking with the default stuff, that's pretty cool. You can just click dirt and add dirt. That looks kind of cool. Let's try to make it a dirt color. What would that be? Like rust. Yeah, that looks pretty good. And as you can see, it has created this dirt effect across all of our thing just by adding this dirt generator to our mask. And like I said, you can see all the maps we baked here. You can also see the current mask you're working on here as well. So this is what the mask looks like. And the white parts are where the rust color is showing through, and the black parts are where where the underlying color is showing through. So that's good to know that you can view it like that, but it's also kind of confusing to look at, so I'm not going to bring it up for you all for very long. So other things you can do with masks are looking at other generators. So metal edgeware will use the thickness map we were talking about earlier to bring up edgeware, or other maps too. Probably curvature is in there. And what this will do is basically have the rest only to where curves appear in our mesh by using those baked maps. It looks like it's only using the curvature mesh since it's not showing up on the sides here. But yeah, that's really good to know if you want to make some realistic metal objects and stuff like that. You can just pop them into Substance Painter and use them like that. And we're going to go away from just the basic layers for now and go on to, I guess we're going to go on to tiling and then to alphas, because tiling is really what I think most people here would like to see. Oh, because we're already in the default scene. So say you have plane like this. And it needs to be tiled. So you have, say, different parts of it. Like that. So in order to, say, have a nice tiled texture on this, like you might want for a brick wall, we're going to do well, first we need to export the UV map. This is a lot similar to that Blender tutorial I did a while ago, but we're going to open our UV map and we're going to unwrap our texture like this. And in order to make it loopable, we're going to do something special and map every single square in this to the same coordinates on the UV map. So I'm going to size it up. And then you can actually rip these off their islands for on split. Alt M, cool. And then you can bring them all here into the center, so they're all in the same grid. And I've actually done that already, so you don't have to watch me click and drag all of those. And it looks like this. And once you've done that, you should have a nice textured thing. And you can create tileable textures just by drawing on this little bit. And where, of course, Substance Painter shines is drawing across the UV map. The seams make it go directly to the other side, so you can create things like that. You can create things like stripes or a grid. And that's pretty powerful if you want to create something like that. And just because I said bricks, we're going to throw in a quick brick generator and create a nice little brick wall. So I'm going to get rid of that and just create a base color. Then I'm going to add another fill layer and make it brick colored, so reddish. And I guess turn up the height and roughness in this. So these sliders here, really they're just sliders. You can change anything you want it to be more metallic. You can change it like that. It doesn't save the default value, so you have to be careful when you change things, but it is actually kind of good to just shift things around until they look good and then just stop messing with them. It's hard to find, an exact value for anything you want here. So once we have that, we're going to add another black mask. And then we're going to add another generator. And this time we're going to add a special generator, which is the mask editor. And this is probably my most used one because all these are default. And if you use them, all your stuff are going to look the same. So if you use things that make them yourself, like the mask editor, where you have to create your own, everything you make is going to look unique. And, you can add like your own style to it and stuff like that. So if you go with a mask editor, you can go over here and just search brick. Oh, look, brick generator. Automatically generates bricks. That sounds good. So now we have image input. We just clicked and dragged a brick generator into here. And we have to actually turn it on here so it uses the texture we gave it. And we can play with all of these sliders it gives us to try to find the, correct way to make it look. It gives us lots of things to play around with, like the gaps. And I think we just want it to have more on the y-axis. Oh, that looks good. Yeah, just turning up the balance makes it look very good. I like that. And just like that, we have a tileable brick texture. So this right here is what it's actually looking like. And this is what it looks like when it's tiled. So we can see it after it's tiled and before it's tiled. And if you want to actually see the tiling, you can just turn on wireframe, I believe. I don't think I remember quite where wireframe is. There it is. So you can actually see where the tiling is. And yeah, that's a good way to tile some textures. And let's see how we're doing on time. We're about at time, so I'm going to show you how to export these now. So when you're done with this, you can go over here to export mesh, or not export mesh, we want to export the texture. Export texture, and you have to choose a configuration. Now this is actually a hard part. It has many, many different configurations. I believe Unity is in here. Yep, there's Unity. So you can just select Unity if you're doing that and you don't have to make your own. But if you're doing Blender, unfortunately, you do have to make your own. I created one here for cycles rendering. And there's many tutorials online on how to make your own Substance Painter exporter, especially for cycles since it's so popular. So we're going to export our material for the tile. And we're going to export it just to this thing I have here called text. And if we come and look at this, it has a brick in it. Nice. So if you go back to Blender, if we go back to our material, we don't actually have one, so let's create one. So after you're finished with Substance Painter, it's actually kind of tricky to use the things you found in them. If you're using it for Unreal Engine in particular, I know that you have to change the brightness because it'll export things too bright. So for Blender, it's actually really easy. All you have to do is go to Shader Editor and hit. And go to, if you don't know this about Blender, this is the best thing in the universe. Go to Preferences, Add-ons, and search Node Wrangler. Node Wrangler is the best thing in the universe. It wrangles all of your nodes for you. And with that, instead of doing a long drawn-out process of creating a PBR material here, you can literally just click Control-Shift-T, and it does it all for you. I believe it was desktop, tutorial, texture, and you literally just click the textures that you exported and click done. And it created all of this for us. This very large scene here, which is very convenient for people who are lazy like me. And just like that, you have this very nice looking scene right here. We're going to add a light to it real quick. I guess I don't know how to add a light to it anymore. They change this thing every day. Anyway. I was in edit mode. That explains so much. I was blinking for a moment there. Anyway, yeah, we have a nice pretty light here now. And that looks pretty good. We didn't add any roughness to it or anything. We had a little bit of height, but that's just a really quick and simple brick texture you can make that's infinitely tileable in just a couple seconds. It's pretty powerful and pretty fun. Are there any questions about Substance Painter or about Blender or anything in general?
That's pretty cool.
Oh, see, it's, yeah, that was about 30 minutes. That's a good amount of time. I don't want to overwhelm you all with all of this Substance Painter stuff. Substance Painter is a rabbit hole for sure. I didn't even get into all these crazy stuff, all these maps they have, all these skin they have. It's kind of creepy, especially this one. You can do particles. You can do smart materials. Those are smart. They basically create really good looking materials with things like edgeware and stuff right out of the box. So yeah, that's pretty awesome. I think it's worth the price tag, but there are definitely free options for Substance Painter too that you can find out there. Oh yeah, and it has a built-in render. I should have mentioned that. If you like making pretty photos. Cool. Well, I will make sure to upload the PowerPoint here on the Discord if anyone wants to check it out or look at some things on their website. And if there aren't any questions, I think we're just about done for the day.